It's the Gold Coats and Guns half hour here on YouTube. My name is Tom Luongo. I hope you've all had a great couple of days. I want to talk about a number of things today, actually. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on pretty much every moment of every day. I don't know, when I start one of these things, I'm not sure whether I should talk about geopolitics, I should talk about personalities, I should talk about whatever headline I happen to respond to, or should I talk about the markets, because they're all interconnected. And they're all almost equally important, and it's at a certain level you almost aren't even sure what you should be talking about. So hey, let's get the microphone in place and actually do this properly. So this morning, the big news from yesterday was the shakeup in President Trump's National Security Council. Yep, got it. And the move to get rid of McMaster, which is a good thing, and the bringing on John Bolton, it's like it never rains when it pours. I mean, I honestly, I'm never. I at this point I shouldn't be surprised when I see stuff like this. I shouldn't be surprised to see that at the end of the day, Trump is still not in control of his own administration, and he's making like he is here, but he's not. He's either completely succumbed to. Let's be generous. Like, he's either always been this, frankly, Israeli first neocon, which he's showing himself to be now, with all of these appointments, or he's trapped by the situation, and he is really no different than any other U.S. president, which is that he's allowed to screw around a little bit with domestic policy, but he's not allowed to change foreign policy. And therefore, bringing in a guy like Bolton, after bringing in a guy like Kudlow, after bringing in and then after moving Pompeo up and keeping Nikki Haley at the UN, it just looks like an administration now run by Israel. And, you know, I hate to bring it up that way. I hate to talk about it that way. But it's exactly what we're seeing. And you got to call a spade at some point. And not just Israel, the Saudi Arabians too. I was watching a Periscope with Lee Stranahan last night, which if you haven't seen it, I don't have a link to it. But if you just look up Lee on Periscope and check out his stream from last night, Lee is unbelievably, at times he's unbelievably self-important and everything else, but he had a lot of really good points to make about the fact that it's really Saudi Arabia that Saudi Arabia is as much of a problem as Israel is. And we're not going to get a change of that attitude with Bolton in charge, and Bolton in charge of national security. Now, there's a couple of good things. We'll go over the silver lining first, and then we'll go over all the bad stuff. So the silver lining about Bolton and Kudlow and Pompeo and Trump is that I do believe, and still Mattis in there, I still believe fundamentally that all these guys are patriots. They're all American patriots at a certain level. The question is, to what degree are they willing to subordinate what's good for America with what's good for Israel and Saudi Arabia? And the fundamental position of the neoconservatives is that that is the case, right? And that we're willing to make, these Faustian deals with the worst people in order to stop these people's opinions that the other guys, the Russians, the Iranians, the Chinese, are worse people. And Lee brought up a really great point last night about the Golan Heights, which I rarely talk about, and Genie Energy, and that all of the board members for Genie Energy are all the biggest swamp critters. I mean, every one of them. And you can look that up, right? And like I said, go ahead and watch Lee's Periscope from last night. It's worth a lot of your time. And I don't normally pimp Lee because I find him insufferable. But in this case, he's absolutely spot on. And he and I pretty much agree about Bolton. So while Bolton is better than McMaster, because McMaster is not an American patriot, I'm sorry, I just don't buy that. and Bolton is, the upshoot is that Bolton's going to be bad on all the vectors that we don't need him to be bad. Now, I read a tweet this morning from somebody. I can't remember who it was. But somebody apparently in the know, or at least says they're in the know. But, you know, what do you believe about this stuff? That in this negotiations to become national security advisor for Trump, that Bolton promised not to start any wars. But this is John Bolton, who was the architect of the Iraq War, who was really, in many ways, the architect of our policy in Afghanistan, who is one of the biggest war hawks and Iran haters. I mean, this is the only thing that he and Mattis are going to agree on, is that, you know, Iran needs to be destroyed. And the biggest issue for me here is that the protests that we had in Iran earlier in the year or late last year, recently, were not complete astroturf. There is a growing discontent with the mullahs. You saw it in the recent elections in Iran. Now, again, as Stranahan pointed out last night, you know, you think Iran is the worst country in Central Asia, but you got to look at Saudi Arabia. They're a brutal totalitarian kingdom. There's no democracy. There's no representation of any for anybody who's not in the royal family's interest. If you don't have the royal family's interest at heart in Saudi Arabia, you're marginal, if not scum. And in Iran, that's not the case. The mullahs have a lot of control. They have a deep state problem that in Iran that is, you know, is in many ways equivalent to ours. But there's still a functional mechanism by which people can express themselves and tell the mullahs that they're not happy with the way things are going. And last year's elections were that. Were a very strong referendum against the mullahs. Rouhani, who was not their chosen candidate, they actually, the mullahs, backed and promoted their own candidate. And Rouhani got 57% of the vote in a very large turnout, by the way. It wasn't a higher percentage. It wasn't a high percentage of a low turnout. It was a high percentage of a higher than average turnout. It was a very important moment. And the protests that we had earlier which were stoked by the CIA and the Saudis and everybody else, but they originally began as a very organic protest against some of the policies, that the reform policies that Rouhani put in place that have not borne fruit. And, you know, inflation is still terrible, unemployment is still terrible, the Iranian economy has still got tremendous problems, and mostly because we continue to put so much financial pressure on, not on them directly through sanctions, but through soft sanctions, through the intimidation of anybody who wants to do business with Iran, and we tell them no, and that we'll threaten to sanction them. That's what the sanctions bill from last year was about. Okay, and that all that does is strengthen, over the course of time, all that's going to do is strengthen the mullahs. And if you think that John Bolton is going to take a lighter hand towards relations with Iran at a moment when the mullahs are weak, you're out of your mind. As I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and that's the first thing he pointed out. He's like, the one thing that Bolton's going to do is he's going to push for a stronger hand with Iran, which is only going to strengthen the mullahs' control over that society. I mean, what's the point? What is your end game? What's your goal? If Trump's goal is not to start a war, Trump's goal, as I've been saying for months, is a peace plan in the Middle East, how the fuck does John Bolton, of all goddamn people, further that end? Well, yeah, okay, so he'll stop McMaster. He'll stop Dina Powell from leaking shit behind the scenes through McMaster. Okay, fine, great. Is that all you care about, Trump? You care about your image so goddamn much you're not actually thinking through the actual policy, which is that these people were the architects of the shitstorm that you've inherited? It wasn't, and this is another point I want to make about Trump, and this is the part that is really beginning to piss me off, and I'll tell you why. Because I figured this, because I expected this the moment he got elected. I told you all on Periscope and in print, Trump has fundamental personality defects. There's no doubt about that. Everybody knows it. The deep state have been using that against him. They've been using his vanity and his narcissism against him. At times, those two things are strengths. When he's dealing with the media directly, they're strengths. When he's dealing with the Alinsky-type tactics of the Democratic Party and his opposition in Washington on domestic issues, he's brilliant. But when it comes to foreign policy, Trump has to look strong. He keeps talking about this peace through strength thing. But he doesn't understand what peace through strength actually means. It doesn't mean being a chest-beating 800-pound gorilla all the fucking time. Strength is Vladimir Putin. Putin who never raises his voice, never gets angry, never gets triggered by anything. Just it tells you what he's going to do and why. And then he goes and does it. And when he makes an agreement with someone, he sticks to it. The Americans are incapable of doing this. We're incapable of doing this because, and this is why no one actually trusts us, because when we go from regime to regime, we use the change in regime as an excuse to break agreements that the previous regime made. The Iran nuclear deal, the ABM treaty, all of our discussions with North Korea over the last 20 years to get them to give up their nuclear program. Every time the president changed, even though the policy fundamentally hasn't changed, even though the Brzezinski doctrine / Wolfowitz doctrine / Bolton encirclement doctrine hasn't changed, fundamentally has not changed in 40 years. Nothing has changed my entire lifetime. I'm 50 years old, I'm watching this play out, and nothing looks any different. At the end result, that is. Except now that now he's pushed open the door by giving Israel unquestioning support, by signing a $1 billion arms deal with the broke Saudis. The Saudis are broke. They're going broke, and Trump is going to sit here and say, oh, look, I got $1 billion I got a $1 billion business deal for Raytheon. Fuck, Raytheon doesn't need more money. We don't need that kind of manufacturing. Can we build something that doesn't destroy things, please? Can we use that to actually build things that don't destroy things? But we can't produce those things here in the United States. China produces them better than we do. That's why they produce iPhones for Apple. Because we can't do it at a decent price. So do you think that any of this is going to fundamentally change with John Bolton as National Security Advisor? Sure, the leaks coming out of the White House will improve. Sure, I don't doubt that Bolton's a patriot. I just doubt his idea of what patriotism is. The problem with Bolton is that he's not an idiot, he's an ideologue. And you can't work with ideologues. You can't negotiate with ideologues. And Trump has gotten this idea in his head that he shouldn't be negotiating with anybody. That he only negotiates once he's pushed everything to the ragged edge. And now we can negotiate. I got news for you. He's negotiating with people who don't bluff. You can't pull the... I've been saying this since the day he got elected, or earlier. There's a reason why Donald Trump doesn't have any businesses in Russia. He doesn't have any hotels in Russia. Okay? Russians don't bluff. Russians act. It's in their culture. They act and they don't bluff. And they don't like being... They don't like being... What's the word I'm looking for? Disrespected during negotiations. And Trump makes these boastful and braggadocio, retarded, over-the-top opening offers, which work well in the West because it works well on European mindsets. It works well on us. It's great. It's brilliant. It works well with Americans. It doesn't work on Russians. If it did, he would have businesses in Russia. And he would have been impeached by now, by the way. Okay? Because the Democrats would have just used that against him. He doesn't have businesses in Russia because he cannot use the art of the deal to get what he wants, and therefore he has to scuttle all the deals. So do you think that in his personal business dealings, if they failed to work with Russians, do you think that's going to fly with Vladimir Putin? Do you think Putin's going to blink? I'm asking a serious question. Because if you do think Putin's going to blink, well, I've got news for you. Trump is playing his crazy Ivan routine where he's saying, his idea is this is pure crazy Ivan. And I said this in an article a couple of weeks ago, that he's playing his big crazy Ivan routine to say that I'm crazy, I'm insane, and I'm willing to push everything to the brink of nuclear war and hoping that Putin's humanity keeps the world from doing so, and that will gain America the most. It's a fucking retarded way of... And I have to agree with Tillerson. If that's his idea of how to conduct foreign policy in this day and age, he's an idiot. And a moron, which are two totally different things. And hiring John Bolton as his national security advisor just tells me that the swamp isn't getting drained. It's just... So, again, it's just getting deeper. Now, here's the big question. What if this is the best we can hope for? What if Trump is actually what we thought he was? Yes, user 13. The art of the deal is merely amusing to someone raised with a Russian mindset. Exactly. They just laugh at him. They take another shot of vodka and go, "That's nice. Get out. You can leave now. There's the door. Don't let it hit you in the ass on the way out." They wouldn't even say that. Just like, there's the door. Does vidanya. So, and I respect that, actually. I really do. I have to respect that attitude, because I have no interest in negotiations should be brief, short, and what's the word I'm looking for? Mutually beneficial. And everybody knows going in what the situation is. So let's make a deal. Let's make an offer within 5% of where we need to be. We'll discuss around the edges a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next thing. And let's just get done so we can go and get work done. Because ultimately, that's far more important than getting another 2 or 3% out of the deal. But Trump's got so many defects that he has to win, and he has to win big in order to prove himself. This is the way he operates. And it's who he is. At his core, it's who he is. And John Bolton is now the best he's got. It may just be that this is the best offer, the best option he has. But again, it ties into Trump's psychology of how he's going to go ahead with the negotiations. Now he's scaring everybody. Oh my God, we brought John, never met a war he didn't like, Bolton, as my national security advisor. How are he, and everybody's going to be running scared. Not going to be scared. The Russians are going to be scared of this. The Russians have already dealt with Bolton. They're like, he's a clown shoes. Because he's not a statesman. He was there. Remember, he was I think he was UN ambassador when we abrogated the ABM treaty. Do you think Putin is going to give Bolton the fucking time of day? I mean, if you do, you're not serious. He knows exactly what Bolton's going to tell Trump. And the next phone call they have, it's going to be, yeah, arms reduction. Let's discuss this. Let's sign a new treaty. Oh, no? Okay, fine. Pull your troops out of Ukraine. No? Okay, fine. Pull your troops out of Syria. Stop building bases. Stop stealing all their fucking oil. Oh, no? No? I'm okay, fine. At some point, Putin's just going to start blowing up our aircraft carriers. Can you hear me now? And it will be Trump's fault, because there was a structure for a deal here. And there was a deal without Bolton. And there was a deal without Pompeo, who's so thoroughly over his head as Secretary of State. I mean, think about the way this is played out. Think about the timeline here. Trump goes into the White House very naively thinking he's going to be able to get control of foreign policy, have rapprochement with the Russians, which is why he's got Michael Flynn, which is why he hired Rex Tillerson, which is why he did all the things that he did in order to start the process of disentangling us from the wars and the empire and everything else. All of that was on page. And then he's sat here and been saddled with all of this crap and these false accusations and everything else, which all impugn his freaking manhood and his dignity and everything, which at a certain level he's immune to, but at a certain level you're not immune to it every day for 16 or 18 or 20 months. You start cutting deals with people because you have to. You're surrounded after having people recommended to you by John McCain, by people you thought were at least patriots. I mean, McMaster was recommended to Trump by John McCain, who then stabbed him in the back at every turn. So everybody's stabbing him in the back. The Republicans are stabbing him in the back. They're saddling him with these ridiculous bills. Schumer and Pelosi are the most vile, venal people you've ever seen, only topped by Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, Reince Priebus, and the rest of them. All of this to create this idea, and then at the end of the day, he's like, okay, fuck it. I just want people who are loyal to the United States, even if they're fundamentally flawed. This is not part of the plan, guys. Giving the neocons complete control over the administration and foreign policy was not part of the plan. It's just what we've got. And it's not going to improve. Now, that's Bolton. That's how I feel about that. I'll be talking about this more on Periscope tonight at 9 o'clock. You can follow me on Periscope by looking me up on the app at Tom Luongo, or you can go to periscope.tv/Tom Luongo, and you can follow me from there. I'm on Periscope Monday nights at 8 and Friday nights at 9. You can also follow my blog over at goldgoatsandguns.com. I've got an article up there now, which we're going to segue into, talking about Facebook and the situation that Facebook is dealing with and their scandal. And this is a fundamental breach of trust. And this is also something that I've been banging on about for 6 months. I wrote an article back in October called Seeing the World Post Facebook. I think that's the actual title. I also wrote one in December calling, Facebook is whistling past its own graveyard. This has all been coming. The censorship from the Silicon Valley, social media, the AI, big data programs that are sucking down all of your data. Anybody who has half a brain knows that this has been going on. And I even believe at a certain level, most Americans understand what's going on. That most of them are willing to make the Faustian bargain. It's like, okay, well, it's free. It's, they're not going to use it for anything really horrible. They're just going to want to try to sell me fucking vacuum cleaners and shit. All right. If that's all they're doing, I don't really give a shit, right? They're using it as oppo research for political campaigns. They're trying to move me on a very important political issues as part of a, literally an Orwellian Big Brother style 2 minutes of hate kind of thing, which is what we've been doing, what they've been doing for years. No. And the point of this is, for those of us who've been red-pilled and have always taken they've always taken the U.S. media with as much salt as we could possibly handle, always understood that the narratives that we've been told are lies, while they go off and do, while they say one thing, while they go off and do something else. Why are we in Syria? Protect democracy. Get rid of Assad. He's a bad guy. No, it's to ensure that we can drill for oil in the Golan Heights. It's to stop a Russian pipeline. It's to do this. It's to do that. It's what it's about. It's never about what they actually tell you it's about. And now, your innocuous Facebook feed and all those toxic conversations you've had with people and your friends on Facebook and your families and everything else, and all of the shit, that all the anxiety and the shit and the vileness that you've had to deal with through the bad interface that is Facebook, because we interact with each other in the worst way imaginable on Facebook. Text takes out all of this. It takes out all the emoting, all the passion, all the body language, all of it. Takes it all out. I may be an asshole, but at least now you really know why I'm an asshole. You know that I believe it. Words are really hard to craft and do well to get your point across and not come across the wrong way. I've been working on it my entire life. I'm 50 years old. I've still got a long way to go to being a great writer. I only consider myself an average writer. Got to have goals, babe. Got to have goals. So, knowing all of that, seeing this data breach, where they literally didn't give a shit at all about about your data and where it went and who they sold it to and what it was used for, any of that stuff. One, it opens them up to a massive class action lawsuit. 1 billion people around the planet can now, sue Facebook. Good. Google's next. I wonder how long my YouTube channel is going to last when I say that. Twitter's already in hell. Twitter exists to support the Saudi regime at this point. That's what it's for. Okay? If you don't think that, go look at their board. All right. So Facebook's not going to survive this. This is a fundamental breach of basic trust. When you it's one thing for the government to be vacuuming up your data via the NSA and Ed Snowden telling us that this is what and how they were doing it is one thing, right? At a certain level, we all expect that. We all understand that at a certain level, we make the Faustian bargain with government that they do all these things, but they're doing them for a good reason. At least that's what we tell ourselves so we can go to sleep at night and actually get some rest. But then to think, well, no, that wasn't good enough. We have to have Facebook doing it for us. We have to have Google doing it for us. We have to have Twitter doing it for us. All the time. In the most nefarious ways imaginable. When all I really want to do is, post pictures of my lunch up online, or my some stupid thing my daughter did, or some cute puppy picture or whatever, or my goats gave birth, and then that kind of thing. That's all I want to do, right? That's all I want to use it for. Coordinate with my friends and talk about and talk about inconsequential things or consequential things. And for that, you're going to vacuum up my entire life into a database that knows me better, into an AI that knows me better than I know myself. And you consider that not a breach of basic trust. Because when a private entity does it, and they're a corporation, there is a fundamental idea here that we're paying them at a certain level. We can fire them. We can't fire the government. Certainly thanks to, Lee having to surrender at Appomattox. But when it's a private company, we do fundamentally believe that there's a certain level of insulation from this kind of rapacious behavior, because at the end of the day, we can fire them and go use a different service, and then at the end of the day, they no longer have our data. I said they've now created this, as Lionel put it on RT yesterday, or the other day, arguing with some Hillary shill, which I watched on the Durin. He said, we're dealing with an Orwellian panopticon of data sucking. It's terrible. And they're not going to survive it. And now the other question I have to ask, and this is the last thing I'm going to talk about before, because my time is almost up. The last thing I'm going to bring up, and it's how I end my article over at Gold, Goats, and Guns on this, which just got scraped over to Zero Hedge, which is kind of cool. Is that why this scandal and why now? Cambridge Analytica has been doing this shit for years. It was fine when it was okay when they were using all this data to get Obama reelected in 2012. But the minute it got Trump elected in 2016, it's not acceptable anymore. Personally, I think that this is part of the big setup to finally go after Hillary. Hillary's stumbling around in India last week and the week before, while the Democrats are spending unbelievable amounts of money to win special elections, right? Which are kind of like Special Olympics. I hate to say it, but I mean, at the end of the day, they can spend $25 or $30 million to win a House seat or a special election for a senator seat. That's great. Fantastic. But are you going to have a war chest to defend the 300 that you've got that are vulnerable in November? No, of course not. Saw a thing this morning that the Democrats are out there having to borrow money just to keep the lights on for the summer. Okay, they spent all their wad. They spent their wad here. Okay, so now what? This is why they have to use Facebook. But part of me is thinking that since we're post-peak Facebook's on the way down. The Democrats are only going to survive as a party if they can grab the younger voters and hold on to them. But the younger voters are actually leaving them in droves. Okay. So now what? Facebook is for people my age and older now. It's for grandmas. I'm not a granddad yet because I had kids late. But hey, it's for older people. Instagram, Snapchat, and all these other things. And I have no interest in whatsoever because I'm an old guy. Guess what? Now, they own those as well. And the company may survive, but the platform, Facebook itself, well past its peak. So it's now vulnerable. In the same way that Hillary is now vulnerable. Because she offers nothing to the people who are currently in charge. And somebody has to be offered up as a sacrificial lamb. So, and if they want to get control over this, if they want to regain the center, their only plan for regaining the center during this midterm election is to allow the conspiracy of silence around Hillary Clinton to collapse. And that's why so many people are lying. That's why so many people are freaking out. It's why Brennan's freaking out. It's why Comey's freaking out. It's why McCabe's freaking out. It's why they're all freaking out. It's why they're bringing up Stormy Daniels and all this crap. It's all coming down to, can they, when are they going to let Hillary go in order to regain their credibility with the voting public? Because that's the best chance they have, because they are scared to death of an even bigger populist wave coming their way in 2018. And since most of them, and look, politically, Trump putting Bolton in as his national security advisor, it's politically, if I was his Dick Morris or whoever, if I was that guy, I'd be like, yeah, this is a good move. Because so much of this country is actually freaking neocon, because that's what we've told them to be. So many conservatives are, I saw so many people on Twitter this morning trying to apologize for Trump, hiring literally the only person worse than John Bolton would be Wolfowitz or Richard Pearl, for fuck's sake. Hey, I think Rummy's out of a job. How will we hire him too as a consultant? I mean, if you really just want to go whole hog, let's just do the whole thing, right? Let's just go there. So that's what we're talking about. When John McCain makes a move that Donald Trump likes, or when Donald Trump makes a move that John McCain likes, it's a bad idea. But politically, it'll be good for his base. If he vetoes this omnibus spending bill, it'll be good for his base. He'll shore up the midterm elections for his candidates. No doubt. And the Democrats are doomed. They're facing an existential threat. The only thing they can do at this point is to let Hillary go and take the Clintons down. And say, see, we can drain the swamp too. The irony is so thick, I gotta wear shades. All right, you guys have a great afternoon. I'll be on Periscope tonight at 9 o'clock. This has been the Gold Goats and Guns Half Hour. My name is Tom Luongo. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk soon. If you liked what you heard, give a like, give a subscribe. Really important, really helps to, make a dent in Google's analytic algorithms. And if you want, you can follow me on, support my work over on Patreon, over at Patreon/Gold Goats and Guns. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon and keep your stick on the ice.